out to another episode of It's All Been Done Radio Hour. This week we do a story roundtable. We've got the cast of Universe Journey together to talk about these first 3 seasons and the musical, which was the season 4 premiere. We hope you enjoy that. Before we begin, we want to thank Circle 270 Media, which this podcast is a part of. We want to thank Mad Lab Theater, where we perform on the second Saturday of every month at 5 p.m. Next show, Saturday, September 14th. We hope we'll see you there. We want to thank It's All Been Done Presents, our parent network of podcast, written work, video series, and more. One of the programs is It's All Been Done, a Bare Naked Ladies podcast. Evan and Saker are going through the Bare Naked Ladies catalog, song by song. They've already done Stunt. They've already done Maroon. So those are the big albums. And now they're going to go through all the albums that people are less familiar with, but in my opinion, are also still very good. So now's a great time. Jump in, listen to them and their crazy theories, and listen to them talk to guests like Hal Lublin, Justin McElroy, Jesse Thorne, all kinds of people. It's a really good show. Highly recommend it. Now enjoy this Universe Journey Story Roundtable. Welcome out to another It's All Been Done Radio Hour Roundtable. This week we're talking Universe Journey, and we have the entire cast, almost. We'll soon have the entire cast here. Starting with Nick Arganbright.
Hey.
Captain Kake.
Hello.
We've got Katie Boissoneault, Lieutenant Commander Topolati.
Hi.
Chase McCants, Dr. Who Grappa.
Hi.
Shane Stefanchik, Lieutenant Commander Meow Meow.
I'm working on a computer.
Kristin Green, new.
Beep, boop. I don't know.
And Seamus Talty, Chief Engineer Foley.
Oh, I still have to make sound effects?
Just talk.
Hi.
So, we're going to talk about the first 3 seasons of Universe Journey. As we record this, it's the day of the musical, and this will air after the musical, so we can talk about everything you guys have read, unless you've read the next couple scripts, which are on the Trello board. First, let's talk about what your first impressions of the segment were before we even got started, when you first read the script, if you can remember back that long.
Well, this was the first like audition piece. So this was all. I didn't even know there were going to be other shows. I think it was just.
In this packet, there would have also been Porn Star Detectives and Scary Dad.
Did you list them as that though?
I don't remember what the first audition packet looked like.
Yeah, it's been a while, but I remember thinking like, oh, cool, like an alien, like it's described as sort of lizard-like and sinister. It's like, okay, I'll come up with something, and then sent that in. And
did you get cast?
I don't know.
Okay.
So that was fun. That was fun to read.
Wasn't he the first one officially in?
Shane was the very first audition I received.
Yeah.
For Meow Meow.
It was just such a random. I think I thought on a Facebook post. In one of the like Columbus groups, and I had just like resolved like I'm gonna go find something to do, like some sort of, I don't know, like voice thing or something, and that popped up. I'm like, this seems like a low commitment thing I can do.
Says the technical director
Right.
of the show.
I remember, and this is before, like, you were the first audition, and your avatar was just a picture of your face doing just a smile, but it was
a really creepy smile.
It was a really creepy picture, and we were just like, oh, gee.
Well, we didn't look at pictures when I cast it. I looked at it afterwards.
No, right. But also what was interesting is I really wanted Meow Meow's part.
Yeah.
More than anything.
You said Kake or Meow Meow.
Well, but I really wanted Meow Meow.
Oh, okay.
But then when I played that, I was like, I just want Kake now. Yeah.
Well, you were going to play Meow Meow more like Brack, I believe.
No, Brack talked like this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Zorak, that's it. From Space Ghost.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, be a variation of it, of course. But
sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, my first impression way back then.
Mm-hmm.
I came to see the show though, and Universe Journey was by far my favorite from the beginning. Honestly, because of Nick,
Nice.
With Kake, he's really impactful, and he really just commands a lot of presence on the stage. And
Of course I do.
All the characters are so, like, everyone in every segment of this show really knows their character really well, but something about this one, the actors in each role and then the energy among them was just really spot on.
Nick and Shane as Kake and Meow Meow were the first ones that really started to add their own banter to it. Above
Well, when
and
we
beyond
sat
the
down at the
script.
first table reading, you and I were cracking jokes right away,
Yeah.
like I would with Jim, and so I have a good rapport with Shane. Like, so if I f up a line, Shane can meet mine and not make it an f up and make it better, or vice versa. Usually it doesn't happen on his side of things, but yeah, because I really, literally, when Kake can't pronounce shit, that is literally Nick Arganbright not knowing how to say words. And so it's now a Kake thing, but it's bad.
Sometimes I do write things wrong in the script just because I'm like, I can hear you saying that way as Kake.
I would say it that way anyway,
Yes.
so it works out.
But it works really well.
Yeah, sometimes.
Well, and I'm sure some of you were Star Trek fans, and obviously there are some similarities. But was there anybody? But is there anybody here who wasn't really familiar with that franchise or this type of story before?
I mean, that would be me.
That's what I figured.
You weren't familiar with the Star Wars
He's
franchise?
adding me,
get
I
it.
can tell. Yeah, well, because I didn't even I'll get into my story now, but I auditioned. I remember the audition packet, and I was like, oh, I'm going to do Courtney, because it said that there was a chance for her to live or die within the first episode. So I was like, oh, I'll just try it out. And that's all who I auditioned. And then I got the email being like, you're cast. And also, can you take this role? And I was like, ooh, okay, she's going to be a reoccurring character. This is exciting. And then I read the character description. It was be as boring as possible. And I was like, okay.
And we didn't let you talk much in the early days.
No.
They cut you off
Which is
every time you
good.
talked.
Which is great. Yeah, it was always funny. I was like, this character is really, I think that's actually why I liked it originally, because I was like, oh, it's cool, it is really funny that she never gets to say anything when she probably has the most to say, the most valuable things to say. So it's just been a cool, I feel like Takalati's had a really incredible character arc throughout the whole thing.
Now that she's, graduating from command track training and she's a first officer.
And allowed to talk.
Well, I don't think she was ever allowed. I think she took it. She took it herself. She finally got tired of Kake.
Yeah.
And just
I was just like, I'm done with this.
Smack
now.
that down.
Well, I just remember my big pitch was for Jim was my favorite thing ever was when, and granted, I'm more Next Generation than original, but I still like the original show a lot for Star Trek. But I just remember Picard and Beverly Crusher, they loved each other, but they also never really got along in those first few seasons. Not really well. They had a mutual understanding and they were old friends, but they really butted heads. And my favorite were always when they fell down a cave or something, and that happened a few times, where it was just Picard and Beverly, and one of them got wounded.
It's a good thing we didn't do that.
No. Well, but I just remember that was my big pitch was a scene with that. And
Yeah,
we finally did.
Cocaine took a lot.
Yeah, where she chewed me out. It was great. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'd say the hardest thing as soon as we got started and we got to know each other was trying to get Nick to keep Kake mean to Meow Meow and Tokalati.
I hated that.
He wanted to make him we're all gonna get along now. I'm like, no, leave the conflict in.
Well, I really liked the Spock and Kirk relationship, and I really wanted that. And I knew, because to me, kind of by default, because he's an idiot, a Lothario, he's hitting on Who all the time. That in itself is torturous for Who, and kind of Chase at the same time.
Yeah.
I always like to push his buttons a little bit with that. I'm like, hello, and I'll touch his shoulder and stuff, and he's like, oh, okay. No. It's so weird. But I just always wanted that. I liked that relationship. So I was just like, do they really have to, can't he just show a little bit more niceness? And then I made the mistake too of making up names, and that was bad. Because then I ran out of names to call him, and now Jim puts weird names. Yeah, but I'm kind of glad that it stuck though, because I can accentuate a serious moment by just calling him Meow Meow versus calling him whatever name you have in there or whatever name I live in or whatever. So it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, we, in fact, that's why we had Meow Meow drop an air conditioning unit on Kake's girlfriend's head, because you were getting too nice to him, and we needed to reset that.
And granted, that was written that way, too. It wasn't just me.
Well, I tried to write to the performance, and you just kept getting nicer and nicer, and I'm like, okay, we need to reset this.
I feel like right now, especially, as we record this, we're going to do the musical today, the roles are kind of reversed, I feel. Kake is in the position that Meow Meow was kind of in. without time travel. So
Right.
that's fun. But
Because he made a decision that killed his best friend's wife.
yes, and he was actually friends with Foley,
Yeah.
and vice versa. I know it's heartbreaking. Foley's just Brendan's looking at me, and I just kind of want to cry.
Oh,
Okay, Seamus, your turn to jump in.
Yeah, go for it, bro.
Hi,
Hi.
my name's Brendan.
Hi, Brendan.
Are we Brendan or Seamus now?
Both.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, I'm just starting to do that. Hi, I'm Brendan Seamus. Which one do you want to be called, both? At the same time, though. That's
Both?
That's
How are you-
weird.
I'm just gonna call you BS.
That's fine. Honestly, my first impression of it was when Chase came over and goes, "Hey, we need somebody that can do an Irish accent." I'm like, "All right, well, I'm all right with
That's
that."
awesome.
Like, yeah, but he's got some parameters for it. I'm like, parameters? What parameters are there for an Irish accent?
Sounds about me. Parameters.
and
Great
then that's
word.
when you told me that I also had to be the Foley artist. So
Mhm.
it was like, what exactly does that mean? And then figuring that all out, it was a very interesting combination of. I was like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna do this one Irish accent. Oh, I'm also doing all of this other stuff. Gotcha. Okay.
The role that nobody auditioned for because they were intimidated.
Yeah. And so I just took it. And I fell in love with it.
And you're really good at it.
Oh shucks.
When you're not here,
She's not here.
we can all tell. It's very, yeah, you're really good.
You said, "Oh shucks."
Oh yeah, Oshucks isn't
Yeah,
here.
no, shucks isn't here.
Let's talk about the character of Oshucks. How that's the character that never really seemed to mesh with the group, and I admit a lot of that was writing. But that was a character that she just did not really care for any of them. She was kind of above it all, just always drunk.
Well, I just remember anytime you and I would pitch ideas back and forth, or you let me read a script and just offer my thoughts on it, there was always the thing of, and you would always go, well, is there anything you think I can do with All Shucks? If you think of anything, please let me know. And I'm just like, I don't know. Like, she's kind of...
We wanted a drunk, surly doctor, and that's what
we got. But you wrote that in too, like she's
Yeah.
kind of outside of the whole
Right.
group. Like she's not really friends with everybody. So it's
Really handsome.
yeah.
I think that was just being like, I think her death was around the time.
It was Christmas.
Her entire arc was before I really got involved, so I just got to listen to it all straight through on the podcast. And it did reach a point where you were either going to have to find some backstory or like delve deeper with her so that she could form connections, which sometimes when you have a character that doesn't care, they actually just don't care. Like you don't all, but it wasn't working with the group, so I think her death came right at the right time where it just, the character wasn't going to be paying out any longer.
I mean, we were at the point where I wanted to kill somebody in one of the segments.
There was
No, seriously. Not because I want to gratuitously kill somebody every so often, but because that was what, shift 17 or something, and I'm a fan of the shows that there
are stakes.
Yeah, there are stakes, and not everybody's safe, and we needed to demonstrate that yeah, we're a comedy show, but not everybody's going to live to the end of the story. She was the obvious choice because she didn't fit. To the performer, Amanda Ivan's credit, she wrote me a big long email about how we could develop her and how she could fit, and they were not bad ideas. They could have absolutely worked. But the decision was made for the larger story already, and so despite the pitch, I was like, if I don't kill her, it's going to be somebody else, though. And I'd already decided it was going to be her.
So story-wise, two things was, I remember at one point you were thinking of her for like a half second.
Tokolati?
Yes.
Yeah, we did.
For a half second, but then
For a half second.
But here's the
I think we at that point decided to end the scary dad, and then I was like, I'm not going to kill her
twice, right?
Both of Katie's characters.
But the other thing is too is that it's important to point out too is that so like right now we're doing the musical episode, but the concept is though too is that Universe Journey more than the other ones you write or plot out or at least basic ideas way in advance.
Yeah.
So when you did that, you already had like the next year's worth of. You had an idea of what you want to do for the next year, like debating the musical. And where can I say that the ship blows up? Like you already had that's like this is what we're gonna do. The ship's gonna blow up. After that, we'll probably do the musical. Like you had that all at the same time that you're like, and it all has to kind of stem from this kind of event, which then leads to this next event, which then leads to this. And you had it all mapped out. So yeah, it just wasn't all.
Yeah, if we were gonna do a musical, we needed to have stakes for the musical. And blowing up the ship was something I'd wanted to do for a while, and kept saying it's too early, it's too early, it's too early. because we jumped the gun with porn star detectives, making them cops too early, and I'm like, we're gonna save the ship. But 3 years, in my mind, matched the 3 seasons of the original series. And 42 episodes is a great reference for Hitchhiker's Guide, so it just seemed like the perfect time to blow up the ship and reboot that series.
And just because we haven't got to him yet, Chase.
I was going to talk to him next. What would you like to say about him?
Oh, I was just going to say, how did you get involved with this? Because you're like me.
Jim sent me a message and said, hey, I'm doing this and I need actors. And I was like, okay, let's see what happens. And that was pretty much it. Yeah.
You auditioned for who, I believe?
I did not audition for
You did not audition for who?
I auditioned for Meow Meow. I've always played... So at that point, I thought that he was going to be an evil character. And usually I get cast as like a good guy of some kind. And so I always want to play a villain and I never get an opportunity to, so I was like, I'm gonna go for this part, and then this just completely beat me at it. So
But he wasn't evil.
He was not evil, so I'm glad I didn't get the part. Plus you play it much better than I ever would.
What do you like about the character of Who? Over 3 seasons.
I don't have that many lines. I think there is kind of this voice of rationality who is also kind of sassy, which I enjoy every so often. But yeah, I think that it was interesting because at first it was just a very one-note character. I think I didn't really do all that much other than security officer. But I remember there was the episode where Mew Mew was locked up, and that's probably one of my favorite episodes because instead of it being this, this story that was kind of goofy, like we actually had some gravity to his situation, and so the whole he is evil, we had to decide as characters, like, were we on his side or not? And there was that point where I went and visited him in the prison. And I love that. It showed me through the lines, of course, who was, and I think that changed the way I played her from that point on. Is that she's a super caring, super strong and everything, but she since that moment his voice being unsure of herself. She went from being the security officer to being a doctor. She's even quit that now and completely left, and so we've seen her be affected by the things that happen around her, all the way to the point where she leaves. She leaves her friends, the family that she's known for years, and so that's been an interesting ride. That instead of it just being who is this? Even the way that I've been able to speak her voice, she's become more human, or at least in the cadence that she speaks as the time went on. So.
Well, I think even in the early days when there wasn't a lot of, it was very one note, you added a lot to that. No, you did it, because joking around in the early days, that was kind of I just remember it was always fun to joke around.
Well, Chase and I have talked
Well,
Chase and I have talked a lot about how for months at a time, Who really won't have anything to do. She'll just kind of be there, which is not ideal for a lead character. But I think if you look at the 3 years, there is a sort of arc where we knew she was a doctor before the series started. She felt like she could do more good in the security, as you mentioned, and then she went back to doctor because she felt like she was failing. And now she feels like she failed at doctor.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a character that she's not going home just because it's the right decision for her. She's going home because she feels she failed.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is not something we see a lot with lead characters, I don't think.
So that was awesome.
Well, and I think too, both Meow Meow and Who, if you go back, and this is also just growing into the characters, but I think they've both gotten more human speech traits, early on, Meow Meow now has a lot more inflection and is a little more...
Still no contractions, but someday.
But, Who, has... everything isn't just, syllable anymore. It's becoming, a little more human speak, and I think that softens both of them in a way,
I think both characters are also outcasts from their own species, which, from a storytelling standpoint, makes me wonder if Who's going to be content to really just go back to her own planet and stay there.
Probably not. We had that episode where, we all went back and it was just
Nobody appreciated what he would accomplish.
Yeah, and I mean, and so that's...
Come on.
Cockay did, but none of
Okay,
his
yeah,
people.
but again, he was still kind of a dick about it though. So
Yeah.
it wasn't until the very end that I was kind of respectful to him too.
But I think
So,
you also like have to, you can read the script and kind of come to a conclusion. But I always say, imagine what the character feels. It's being picked on by your family, and when you've been wounded so much that even someone who's jokingly, like, kind of jabbing you, all of a sudden that's daggers. And so I think. With Who, it's always been difficult because the separation from family and then the mocking of how Who speaks, being surrounded by humans for the most part, and I think you were the only other alien, Mew Mew was the only other alien, and I'm sure we haven't addressed it like directly, but I'm sure there is some speciousness to it, that we just never really uncovered, and so... I think that's why I cared pretty deeply for your character, because you knew how it was, even if we weren't the same species. So yeah, man, this character is really depressing.
Perfect for Chase. We added new in season 3. The android, a character we kind of thought about for a while, but had not... didn't replace Ashux right away, but she was essentially the next character to come in.
Yeah.
And Kristin helped develop that character a lot as well.
Kind of by accident.
Well, you came to me with ideas for a character that was similar to a character I already had on paper in my plans.
Yeah.
So it was very fortuitous that we could develop that character, even though I made you audition for her.
Yeah, that's true. You did. Yeah, I think I was just thinking about, I think we were just riffing about, like, what's someone who, it's not Meow Meow species, but it's someone who sort of has that same analytical, very intellectual knowledge, but is very awkward with human traits or emotions and stuff, and so we just sort of improv some conversations that way, and I just kind of thought they were funny and showed them to you, and you told me, oh, I sort of have this character eventually that's going to come around, and we just kept riffing on her, and it just came together and seemed to fit, and I think the show or the story was at a time when bringing in some new life to it was it was a good time for it, so yeah, it worked out.
How did the rest of you feel about the addition of a new as a character in the senior staff?
I was one of those people who loved Ashux, and I was sad when she died. But and I don't know what I thought about the character at first, because I was like, okay, classic robot. But my God, there was, by now this episode has already aired, the one where New is on trial. I am jumping way forward in your story now. But it was like, I remember we were at that table read, and we were just all like devastated, right? Like, it was just like it was just this super emotional thing, and so like this character that was just like a robot for a bit and said some really funny things and was super analytical was all of a sudden talking about her own freedom. And there have only been a handful of times where I have been like teary-eyed in this show, and that was like one of them, and we weren't even it was a table read. And I think that's when like New grew on me, because it was just, you realize that even as a person, we're actors all that, but even as a person reading this character, I'm like, oh, it's a machine, right? But that was her whole point in that scene, was like, I am not just a machine, like I have desires too. And to face that as a character, but also a person who's looking in on this story, it was really, really weird, but it was so awesome, and it was expertly played by you too.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
It helps, as the actor playing her, it helps to remember which characters built her, because you have Tokolati and Foley, who are two of the, they have huge hearts and they're very enthusiastic, and of course they would build her to be able to experience human emotion. They don't want a robot, they wanted a fully functioning member of the crew.
Well, I think that episode that Chase mentioned was really hard to write. And that was my way in as well, is what is the standard that we're going to set it by? And to Tokolati and Foley, they're not going to replicate her. They see that as cloning a child.
Yeah.
And that was where it clicked into place, that is how they saw her, and that's how she saw herself as well.
I loved how those two characters doted on their creation too. I think we got to see, Tokolati has always been caring of her friends, but this was like, I mean, the way you played it was just a little bit different than how you spoke to the rest of us. And then Brendan, same thing with you. It was just like there was this love of this creation that you created, and it was always fun, when I wasn't in the scene, because I got to just listen to the inflections in your voices and how you talked to her and interacted with her, especially in those very early episodes where you were still brand new, and they were just marveling at you just existing, and it felt so genuine. And
also shows you how brilliant those two characters are.
I need to pay for the Patreon so I can go listen to those listen to those initial days, because it was just really, really cool how actors who have portrayed these characters for a few years, you all of a sudden throw them something brand new, and then we know these characters so well that it almost comes natural. No one had to coach Brendan and Katie to change the way that they talk about New. They knew those characters so well that it was a natural reaction to it.
I really love, so you've heard the musical by now, hopefully, if not, shame on you, listen to it. I really love that Tokolati and New had a duet in there. Working on that song was one of my favorite parts of this, because they are both in a moment of change and transition, but also sort of becoming much more self-confident and taking the course of the next chapter of their life into their own hands. So it's sort of a mother-daughter duet, and they're just oddly at sort of a similar moment in their lives.
My most emotional scenes are always with Kristin in general, it seems to be.
Oh.
Because you were the love of my life that got a nice AC dropped on your head.
Yeah. That's right.
But also, I feel like the most emotional scenes for Kake, really, because I remember originally the script came off kind of, not mean, but kind of uncaring towards New. He was just very, I don't really have an opinion one way or the other, but it still kind of came off whatever. And I even said, do I just not like her? And you're like, you feel indifferent about her now, and I don't know how...
She's just a pet project.
She's just a pet project, and I didn't necessarily love that. So I've always played it off that he's indifferent towards her, but he also looks at her as someone he can...
It's like when somebody introduces you to their kid, you're like, okay, and...
Yeah. But now that he's got to serve with her, they have a different
that first episode especially, but my favorite stuff has always been with New and Kake. I like all of it, obviously, but... the musical episode, one of my favorite scenes is just that little, he doesn't really do what he normally does, and it's usually he does that always with New, which I really, during the trial, unless it's kind of a trait that Tokolati maybe from mother to daughter has passed on unintentionally, which is, no, I'm very sexist towards you and towards the judge, and I don't mean I'm an idiot, I don't mean any harm by it, but you're both just please don't do that. And then I have a nice little moment with you during the trial, which I really loved, and I'm emotional. And then the musical episode, it's one of my favorite things where I just okay, do you want my help or not? But I love that. I love that.
She does ask for your help. She comes looking for you.
So yes,
that says something about.
No, it does. Yeah. It does, and I that's one. Of
and she may get that from Foley and Tokolati. I mean, everybody looks at the captain. We'll get to that in a second. Before we get to the loyalty and stuff, we need to add in Keith Jackson has entered the conversation. Admiral Jamie Jameson.
I just wanted to say that I guess I like Kristin more than Chase and Nick because I like New right away.
But then you tried to replicate her.
Yeah, you wanted a lot of news.
Well, I meant me, the person.
No, I know.
Again, you wanted a lot.
You just fell for a classic Keith.
My first impression of Jameson, I think my inspiration in trying to figure out a voice for him, for example, is I would think of I don't know if you ever watched the show Psych.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Lassiter. Just the idea of that kind of character, just the shenanigans already. I'm fed up with this guy. I already know what he's like, and it's just God, So it's
your first scene was with Kake saying, "Okay, you need to get away."
Right.
which, by the way, when you listen to that, if any part of that's well, that doesn't make sense, go read the book.
Little retconning going on there.
Yeah, that was my favorite. One of my favorite little lines.
But I mean, even in season 1, we had the March to War arc that he was heavily involved in. His affair with Oshux and his wife betraying him.
Oh, that, yes.
And then
He tried to block that out.
season 2, he went through a lot of emotional turmoil. Season 3, season 2 and 3 served as the first officer for a while. So he's had his arcs.
Yeah, I remember liking the first time it felt like I was really doing anything was the The Weekend at Bernie's thing.
Yeah.
That was a
Yeah.
great episode.
Weekend at Commander Sanders.
Yes.
Great.
That was fun.
That's one of my favorite title puns as well.
Thank you.
Also, one of our favorite moments, I think everybody, I'm so sorry, is Meow Meow being drunk. That's also the episode.
Yeah.
And also the word copious.
Say it.
Copious.
Yay.
Yeah, we need to get him out drunk again.
Sorry. All right.
No. But yeah, no, I feel like Jameson is part of it, but in the same way as we already talked about who Meow Meow being an outsider, he's kind of an outsider because he, even when he was part of the senior staff, he wasn't part of the senior staff.
Right.
Like, they kept secrets from him. You know, they don't tell him why the ship blew up, whereas they told Tokolati even though she wasn't there.
So what you're saying is everyone is technically an outsider on the ship.
In a way.
How-
Except Foley.
How
Except
is
Foley. Foley's not an outsider.
I would like to think, though, that it's whether or not they consider him intimate enough. I mean, I think they would put him in a bad position to know that kind of information as well.
That's true.
He's too high ranked to just, hey, here's this secret, you know.
You know there's something more, and you, as much as you don't want to, you know, like, all right, he wouldn't have done this without a good reason, so I'm not going to press it any further, kind of a...
Well, and he actually, it's interesting that he had the potential recently to have become more of an outsider with the whole thing with New, and people were upset with him. It was only because she forgave him that sort of quenched that, but for a hot second there, he was getting pushed even further away, so.
He was, but to his credit, I mean, I felt like that was kind of his character. He's on the outside of this group, he doesn't realize what she means to the group, and when he realizes that he overstepped his bounds, he tries to pull it back.
Yeah.
He does. He apologizes.
And I feel like that's kind of how he treats Kake's crew as a whole. Like, he feels like he knows what's going on, and then sometimes he does things that, oh, I got in your way. Do you think he looks at them differently after having served with them for a while?
Certainly, yeah, and that's, I mean, especially the Kake relationship. I think he understands the details of what could possibly go wrong on things.
Yeah. Well, Jameson, as you'll know if you read the novel Love's Lost, was a respected captain in his own right. He had his heyday where he was not like Kake, but he was successful as a captain. And one part of the book I liked about him is he kind of served as a mentor to Grace Thomas for a little bit. And I kind of see the same thing now with Tokolati, that yes, she's accomplishing it on her own, but he also kind of gives her a little nudge in that direction.
Yes.
Which of the crew do you think likes Jameson best? Which of you guys?
I would think it would be Tokolati
Maybe,
at this point.
yeah, I was gonna say the same thing, because like you said, he does sort of like encourage her that like, hey, you're good, you can be doing more with what, you know, more than what you've been doing. So I guess it would be her, and I think she has a lot of respect for, I think he's sort of like a professional and sort of like a rule follower sometimes, and I think she resonates with that. She's not like super reckless. And so I think she appreciates, as much as she likes Kake too, I think she appreciates like leadership by the book, like, which is more her speed.
That's a good point, actually. I mean, even with what little she was saying during the first season or so, she was usually the voice of reason to some extent. You know, the audience voice of like, this is, what are you guys doing? This is, you can't do this.
We haven't had a relationship among the senior staff, although we've come close a couple times. Does anyone regret that Meow Meow and Tokolati never went there?
No, I think mostly because I think it's hilarious how like it was like, because like she kind of had the crush, and then when he found, it was like, oh no, like that's
So
just,
mean.
like you wouldn't. I guess like any other show would be like, oh maybe or something. Like no, he was like, oh, I find you disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're playing with that weird trope that a lot of American sci-fi, well, probably most sci-fi in the world, the idea that human women are universally attractive and that kind of thing. Whoa, she can get past this scaliness, but why would he just? Oh, she's, you know.
Yeah.
I think it like made sense. Like I said, I think in like my Meet the Cast thing, like I think it made sense at the time because it was like she was an outsider too in her own way, and like I think they had some kind of like, I don't know, like initial interaction where I think like he made her feel accepted, and she was sort of like, hey, you know, he's not evil, I know that, and like I think it made sense, but at the time, but I think also it was good that it didn't progress farther than that. It was
Well, I think Tokolati in a lot of ways throughout season one was kind of a stereotype.
Yeah.
The way she was shut down, the way she was disrespected, the crush on Meow Meow, like she was taking action because of a guy.
Yeah.
And if we had continued on that, I think the character would have been a lot less interesting, whereas shutting that stuff down forced us to find other things about the character.
I just love, I love her character, and I love how she's, grown throughout, and I think that's why I like her, because I think, her as a character sort of parallels, my involvement with this group. I've always seen it that way, at first she was just a professional who showed up and did her job, and I think that's what I did. I just came, read my lines, and then, left, and then, slowly but surely, not that I didn't get along with anyone in the cast.
Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I don't like Katie.
Yeah.
The cast or the crew? You mean like the?
Oh, we have
Oh,
a big
yeah.
crew here.
Well, yeah.
No, I'm sorry, I wasn't sure. Just that whole thing of we're talking about the actors or the characters or what?
I think it's
She's
kind of
drawing a
both.
parallel between.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I think me as an actress got to know other people throughout, and I remember certain times where I would talk to someone, and I think that's sort of how her character has gone. She just showed up and did her job, but then slowly but surely she started forming actual relationships with these people, and it's not okay, I'm not just a young professional who's trying to make her career right now. It's so I think the character paralleled a lot with my own life, which I thought was cool.
So we've gotten through the part of the story where obviously we blew up the ship, but we've seen a lot of loyalty among the senior staff towards Kake and each other as we blew up the ship. What do you think brought them so close? Even more than a normal crew at this point, that they, we exposed in the episode where the ship blew up, they went on his faith. He didn't explain before it happened. They're just he's going to explain after.
Well,
We're just going to go with
I
it.
think it's not even the first episode. The second episode, I think, cemented a lot of people's opinions change, which you wrote really well. And I forget the name of the character, but Sam played the character.
You're thinking of the fourth episode.
Or was it the fourth episode?
Trapped on the Bridge.
What was
with
episode
Clint.
2?
Ashuks. We met Ashuks.
Oh, that was all shucks.
And then the third one was the commands.
My memory is all messed up. I thought that was episode 2. I thought they were the same, but no, you're right. So episode 4, they're putting a real thing, and Sam plays Clint, and I completely outmaneuver that. I completely bluffed my way
The
through.
Carbonatum.
Yeah, the Carbonatum. But no, I think that was the first sign that I think that everyone realized that Kake kind of knows what he's doing, even when he doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And also I think too, he cares about the characters in the crew, the ship. He breathes it in and breathes it out, and
It's almost like the lyrics of the song. But no, but there's obviously something more that bonds. We talked about a lot of the characters being outsiders. We talked about how they fit in together. I think there's quirkiness to all of them. Tokolati loves the 70s. What's up with that? That was a Nick edition.
I was just it's a weird thing.
Foley, Foley doesn't even hang out in engineering with his wife and his friends he hired. He hangs out on the bridge all the time with these guys. So
Yeah, great. Now look what happened.
Yeah, he's in.
I was going to say the bonding thing was really people wanting to kill Fitzy. The crew was just we need
They
to
all
get it out of there somehow.
I figured.
That brought everybody together.
Secretly came against me.
How can we all kill Fitzy now?
Initially as an audience member, a lot of this was you got to figure out who each of the characters were by how they felt about Kake.
Yes.
Sort of.
he is the lead.
Yeah, so how they all react to him is a thing, but also just the way he
know.
is, since he's not by the book and he sort of goes off the cuff sometimes.
And he's a chauvinist, so he's completely outside. He's a man outside of the time
Right.
that's around him.
So it forces people to think outside of just their this is how I was trained, this is what we do. So you're sort of forced to not only do your job differently than you would, but you're forced to get to know different sides of people. So maybe that's part of it. Whereas if he was a very by the book leader, then there would be no need to or no chance to get to see beneath just everyone in their own role.
Is there anything you wish we would have done before we blew up the Thrifty?
Yes.
What?
Saved my wife.
Damn. That was.
I appreciate your dedication to the
That was
Or you guys just think it was time to get rid of the shit?
I Say again.
It's like get caught by Clint.
I think we're gonna do it at some point, but to do the original ending to the Z story I wrote.
Oh yeah, we will.
I know we will, but I would have liked to have done that with the ship and not wherever a cockade might be. But again,
Maybe there'll be another ship by the time we get there.
Oh, that's true. But either way, yeah.
Although we're not just giving them another ship.
Well, yeah, no.
I was just curious, what do you each think is in store next for your character? Where would you like to see them go?
I would personally like, whenever, time or circumstance, if it brings them back together, I'd like to develop more defined relationships for New and the other people.
Sure. Well, she was a newer character, so she didn't have as much time.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So that's what I'm excited for, is just to build her as a person, but also how she relates to all these.
I'm curious, what do you think New will major in the academy? What type of position would she want to go into?
Well, she knows so much already. I think she'd be most interested in the kitchen.
The kitchen.
I think she wants to learn to cook. She has all the information already.
True. I like that.
No, I don't know. I have no idea.
What do you think is next for Foley? You think he just becomes a hermit in his house forever?
Maybe not forever, but I think he's definitely going to have to take a lot of time to be able to get over this. And I don't think that he'll ever come back as the same. And I think he'll put himself much more fully into his work than he did before. Where before it was this kind of genius style madman, but it was Fitzy kept him grounded. Fitzy, kind of kept his feet on the ground, where now that he's no longer tethered. See what I did
It's
there?
almost like those are theirs too.
I think that if he were to ever come back, that he'd throw himself into engineering and start creating all of these very bizarre, very obscure things, because now.
Do you think Foley will ever forgive Kake? Or could ever forgive Kake? I'm not saying quickly or easily, I just mean someday.
It's okay.
Would he ever work with him again? I think yes, but would he ever truly, completely, and freely forgive him? No. There'd always be a little part of him that still holds that fact, but I think that we could.
Or would it be you don't forget, you might forgive, but you don't really forget?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
That
kind of a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
we
agree.
could work together. We could, I think it is kind of a similar situation where he killed your girlfriend and now you killed my wife. So I think there's,
for the greater good. Ugh.
The greater
Yeah, there's some parallels there.
good.
There's some
So
parallels.
it's kind of like that, would you ever truly forgive him? Yes, I think you would, but there's that never of that.
I've been told no, I will never forgive. But at some point, I'll forgive, but not forget. Yeah.
We'll see. Chase, do you think we'll see who again?
No.
She's just gone to her planet and her story's over?
I think so. In storytelling, everyone has to have a purpose. I think she's run hers. I think if she comes back, it'd be like a one-off. But I mean, honestly, I don't know. But I don't see a way that would happen.
Now you can audition for a new character.
Like Kristin's.
New 2.0. Togalati, what do you think's next for her?
I think that blowing up the ship was opportune timing for her, because she already sort of had one foot out the door. Not that she really wanted to, but it's I think she's sort of been torn between what she knows and what she could be, and now it's she really can't go back. So I think now she's just on she's already been making leaps and bounds with her career and her success, but I think now it's just race to the top for her. Honestly, I think like I said, it came at opportune time. She was gonna go back, essentially not in the same position, but she was gonna go back, and although she's developed relationships with them and cares about them, ultimately she was not respected or valued to her full capacity. I think it grew, but I think she was gonna go sort of, I don't want to say settle, but they're her friends and she loves them and cares about them, but ultimately it wasn't them who pushed her to do better. And I think now that she's sort of like free of that, that they've dispersed. So I think it's just like I said, like a race to the top. I think she's just gonna there's nothing really holding her back now from being everything she wanted.
Yeah, I think she fully intended to just go be the EXO on the Thrifty until the Thrifty was destroyed. And last thing, Jameson and Meow Meow, we know you're on the Echo Dimension project. What do you think's going to come of that? What do you want to see from that?
I'm curious. Meow Meow's motivation, I think, is just science. I mean, he's the science officer, so this is a chance to explore all kinds of new science. I mean, I think he's in it for, one, it's another dimension. That's almost pinnacle of science. But also, I'm what kind of technology do they have? What kind of science do they have over there? I think that's one of his motivations. I'm curious personally, what's Jameson's motivation? Of going back. Is it just purely hey, this is good for the ASS, or does he have a more personal motivation for going? But that's what I think.
Well, thank you guys all for sitting down. I'm sure we'll do another Universe Journey Roundtable down the line, but 3 years down and we'll keep going.
Yeah.
Yay.
Woo!
It's all been done. Radio Hour number 190. Story Roundtable number 4, Universe Journey. Starred the cast of Universe Journey. Hope you enjoyed it. Check out our website, itsallbeendoneradio.com. Follow us on social media at IABDpresents.com. And on Facebook, we also have a separate Radio Hour page. Have a great week. Welcome out to another unit. Sorry, we're going to start over again.
3, 2.
So, Keith, what were your first impressions of Universe Journey and the character of Jameson?
So we're now here for the roast of Kristin Green?
No. That's next week.
Okay.
Next week.
Terrible roast, you guys. I feel pretty good right now.
Have you let Katie talk yet?
No.
I'm playing my character in season 1.
It's All Been Done presents.
Who's got the time?